Hi, I'm Emily, the Creative Director with Heartfelt Creations. Flower shaping is something that everybody loves, and in this video I'm going to give you all of my favorite flower shaping techniques using one of my favorite tools. So all the flowers that you're currently seeing on our website and you're like, how do I do this? You're at the right spot. I'll show you how to use each tool to make that perfect flower. This is the Deluxe Flower Shaping Kit, and with this kit you're going to get 10 different nibs and your tool. So we're just going to show you the back. Here we have a different sizes. You have anywhere from a paper piercer to 1 millimeter all the way up to 12 millimeters, and your curler and your tool. So when you open this up, you can use this box as a storage solution. So you can open that up. It's a magnet clasp so that this just comes open easily for you. I really like this because it keeps all my shaping tools in one box. So when you open this, you'll have your mat that you can lay to the side, and then here you have your piercing mat, you have your stylus tool, and then all 10 tips are nestled in here. So to get started, we're going to show you how to use each tip with the different flower shaping techniques that we have. So you'll bring out your tool, and then we're going to start out with a 12 millimeter tip. So I'll put that in the one end, and then we'll use the 8 millimeter tip. So we'll just pop that in the other end. So to start out with, this is a very large tip, and a lot of ladies are always asking, what do I do with this one? This is the tip that I use when I'm trying to shape large flowers like this, that I want to have a very smooth surface. So for this one, all you'll have to do is just take your stylus and I go in a circular motion on each petal. One thing to keep in mind when you're shaping your flowers is the harder you press, the more dimension that you achieve. So this is a very basic technique that you'll use when you're just trying to get kind of that smooth look. So that will give you that effect for the flower, which is the same effect I used on this Posy Patch flower. This one is the Ariana Blooms. Another way I like to use this 12 millimeter tip is taking a butterfly or a bird, and you don't want to have that one all crinkled up, so this makes a great tip to shape like those little birds and butterflies and get a nice smooth texture but get that dimension in there as well. And then I would flip it over, use the 8 millimeter tip to just kind of go down the body of the butterfly. Now the next size down in the Ariana Blooms, this is a smaller size, but you want to have that same smooth look if you're going to be layering those together. So I would switch to the 8 millimeter tip. The 8 millimeter tip is for flower petals that are a little bit smaller, and you still want to have that smooth effect. So we'll do this on each of those petals again, and you'll see that you get the same effect, but you have that smaller tip. Typically this and the 6 millimeter tip are probably one of my most used tips, and then you have that flower which will coordinate beautifully with the one we just did. To create this look, this was the Majestic morning flower. I also shaped it over here, so there's different ways you can achieve and shape these flowers, but I'm using this 6 millimeter and 4 millimeter tip. So I'm going to start out with the 6 millimeter tip, and I'm going to spray the back of the flower with water. Typically I use a 60 to 80 pound smooth cardstock when I am shaping flowers. So when you use the 6 millimeter tip, you're going to just kind of bounce at the tip of the petal and pull towards the center. Since this has a smaller petal tip and you still want it nice and rounded, you'll move to the 6 millimeter tip. Now you'll see that this flower is way more ruffly. So what I did is I switched to the 4 millimeter tip, and you can instantly see that when you drag those petals forward, that tip is just a little bit smaller, and that it'll give you a nice crinkled look. So if you want to have more of a crinkled look, use your smaller tip. So this one I'm using the 4 millimeter tip, and then once I'm finished, like I'll just go back and do this a little bit more to some of the first petals that I did. But once you're finished, I'll flip back and use the 6mm tip and just press down in the center, and that gives you a flower that is very ruffled. And when you add all those different layers on top of each other, you'll have a flower like this. Everybody always asks me how to create these flowers with the ruffled tips. For this one, again, I like to spray some water on the back. Once it's dry, it'll make it very stiff, and it also makes that it shapes easier, and it also makes that the paper distresses a little bit better. So for this one, I'm using the 5mm tip, and I am just kind of grabbing the tips of the petal and just kind of pulling down towards the center, and that really starts relaxing the fibers of the paper. So you'll do that to each petal tip really quickly, and once you've kind of done that, I will go back and take that small tip and just continue to add a little bit more texture to it, and make sure that those fibers of the paper are completely relaxed. Once that's done, you go back with your fingers and just give a little bit of a kind of what I call a pleating technique. You just kind of zigzag back and forth with the tips of the flower petal. Every petal does come out differently, and I actually just got finished teaching a class on this flower, and when you first do this, it kind of looks intimidating, and it doesn't look like your flower is turning out to be anything, but trust me, it will. So once you're finished kind of doing this pleating technique, there is one more step that just finishes this flower. You'll flip it stamp side down, and then we'll grab a hold of the petal tips, and we'll go back and use that 5mm tip and just kind of give it a really nice rounded look. So you just keep holding the tips of the petal and give it that nice rounded look. So that, so I like to use a bigger, the 5mm size, to give it the nice rounded look, especially if I'm using this size flower. So we'll do that. Once it's finished, we're ready to flip that up, go in a circular motion, and then you could glue these two flowers together. So it will look completely different based on what colors you use or how you stamp it and so forth. The small flowers that you see on this board, I love to use the smallest tips. So I'm going to show you the 4mm, 2mm, and the 1mm. This is a larger flower out of the Botanical Rose set, and I'll have a list of the flowers I used in this video in the video description with links so you can easily refer to those. For this one, if you want that nice rounded look, I'll use the 4mm tip, since this is a smaller flower. So you're just going to circular motion with that, and then just press down in the middle. That gives you that nice rounded effect. But if you say you want to take this small flower and you want to have a very very pinched or distressed look with it, you'll go to the 2mm. The 2mm will still kind of give it a slightly rounded look, and you'll notice that the smaller you go with the tips, the more distressed it is. So you'll bring this up. This will give you a nice dimensional flowers, but I'm going to switch this 2mm tip and go to the 1mm tip so you can see this. This is literally just like a pinpointed tip. So with this one, if you switch to that 1mm, you'll instantly see that your paper crinkles up even a little bit more, and that will give it kind of a really ruffled look in the tips, and you just kind of bounce around the tip areas and pull towards the center. So you'll flip that up, and then you can really use that small flower to just give that some more intricacy. You can do the same technique on the little leaves. The little flower I just got finished with comes from the Birds and Blooms set, and the leaves come from the Birds and Blooms collection as well. If you want a very tattered leaf, you'll just go around the outer edges with the 1mm tip, which is the finest tip that's in the set, and that will give it a very nice ruffled effect. That will give it a very natural look. But if you want to have a nice rounded, just switch to the 4mm tip and just go in a circular motion, and that will give that leaf some dimension, but it will just have a more rounded look. So you'll get two completely different looks on those leaves based on which tip that you use. So those are just a couple options with those more smaller tips. To create flower centers like you see in this flower or in this one, I use the flower curling tip. The flower curling tip, usually when you've seen this in the past, the slits in the center are so tight together that you have a hard time getting the paper in between, but with ours you can just push that in and you can easily grab that and pull that forward. Now when you're using this curling tip, when I pull one forward, I usually kind of just hold it there for a little bit just so the paper gets used to being in that shape. So let me just grab that in a little bit further. Just pull that forward, kind of curl that in. This is to kind of make a flower bud. With this one, the stamp side is facing the back, and that will pull those petals up, so when those are curled, you will see the stamped image from the front. So we'll just continue doing that to each of the petals. Once you've curled about 3 or 4 of them, I kind of push some of the petals out of the way so I can continue moving around the center. So just grab those so you can kind of see how easy that is to grab and just move along with it. So I'll just do the last one. And that's all curled. Now for this center, you'll see that that kind of just randomly pulls together. You could just go back and just kind of pull those together and nestle it to a flower that is bigger, and that would be your flower center bud. For vellum, I also love to use the curling tip. Oftentimes if you use the other stylus tools and press down, the vellum will either crack or some embossing powder will flake off. So with this, you can just grab the tip and just pull that vellum forward, and that instantly has a little bit of a curl in it. So if you're doing vellum shaping, I highly recommend using the curling tip to add the texture and dimension to that. So I'll just bring that forward and just kind of hold it a little bit so it holds the curl in place. So we'll just do that to each of the petals. So this is the last tip in this set. So you have different ideas that you can use with each of the tools, and as you can see, each tool has a different purpose in shaping large to small flowers. So you see how this one's all shaped. The last tip that I haven't shown yet is your paper piercer. We have this mat in your kit that you can just lay your paper on top. Then I usually kind of hold this at an angle and just add your hole in there. So if you wanted to add a brad or something like that in the center, or you just need a little hole in your paper, you've got that instantly pierced into your paper. I know you're going to love shaping your own flowers using this tool set. If you have any questions about any of these techniques, make sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what you have questions about, or what you loved, or what your favorite flower shaping technique was. You can also visit our website at heartfeltcreations.us for more videos and more examples of different ways that we have created flowers. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time.